Welcome to the Startup Sidekick Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Startup Sidekick Podcast. Today's guest is currently the VP of Customer Success here at Abstract, and he has really done so much in such a short period of time. He is absolutely the person you want as employee number 3, so make sure you're listening. Everybody, please welcome Spencer Fossen.
Hello. It is good to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to watching you build this podcast series, and I know you've got an awesome list of guests lined up, so hopefully I can make a little bit of a scratch and provide a little bit of insight here, because there's some heavy hitters on that list, but I'm happy to be here, and yeah, let's do this thing.
It's awesome. 2 Abstract employees. We'll see how this goes and see what we get out of you, okay? All right, so Spencer, you've kind of been all over the place, especially in the sales world, from partnerships to enterprise business development manager. Now you've shifted to customer success. What does your LinkedIn or your resume not tell us about you?
Well, so from a professional standpoint, I think that everyone should have to start in a sales role. I think that should be like a prerequisite if you want to work in the tech world, or just have a basic life skill to understand how you're constantly being sold. And I'm sure many people have heard this. So understanding the ability to identify when you're being sold, and also identify how to be able to go ahead and get things that you need done and accomplished. Sales is a great place to be able to start that. So Smile and Dial, 100 plus calls a day is where we started. Moved over into the partnerships world because I like to build relationships with people and get to know people. That's really some of my core strengths. So that was definitely intuitive for that. And then, got on board with a startup, and they needed somebody who was going to kind of just do whatever. To be able to help move the company forward. And I kind of just had a natural draw and attraction to the customer success side of things. So here I am now. A lot of what I've learned is reading and listening to podcasts just like this from people who are in the CS world, and just applying that on my own and having conversations exactly like this. So what we do is what does my LinkedIn not tell you about me? I don't know. It's I love aviation. I've got 2 dogs. My wife, we love to go hiking, things of that nature. But yeah, so
Hiking not in the summer in Arizona, though. It's a little
correct.
Too hot there. Yeah. Well, so from like a sales perspective, what made that shift that you wanted to go to the customer success? Was it that partnership, that relationship building, or what kind of triggered that for you?
I think that the customer, when you're in an early stage startup, definitely needs an advocate, for sure, because 1, they're the most valuable thing that we have because they're the people who are keeping the lights on. But 2, I think that it's important to be able to understand not only really what your customer needs. I mean, we all know what the customer needs in a sense when it comes to a SaaS, type of tech startup, and you're working within a specific very niche area like we do, but at the same time, how to be able to deliver on that consistently, and understand that person knows that they have an advocate that's on the inside, because obviously for a lot of my revenue folks who will watch this, we're trying to bring in customers left and right, obviously, but with the customer success side of things, there's an opportunity to keep the people who are really helping us go get those new customers not only happy, but continuing to be our customer because they enjoy the partnership that we've built together. So that's part of the reason why I think I've gravitated towards this role, is because it's something that I've always excelled at, is just kind of galvanizing real relationships with people and understanding people on a much deeper level than just the simple surfacey, we'll round up on this, follow up on this next week type of situation you run into most of the time. So
makes sense. So you've worked at larger companies, smaller companies, like what's attracted you about startups, and why did you decide to make that transition to I can just give the example of Abstract. Why did you make that decision?
Yeah. So, I'm a bit of a gambler. I like risk. I enjoy risk. It's what keeps you on your toes. And I think if you're not really doing risky things, life can get pretty boring in a hurry. And risky things also help grow you. They help build a foundation of not only who you are, but the foundation that others are going to be able to build on too, especially when you find yourself in a leadership position. So therefore, when I'm focusing on a startup, Greg reached out to me. I got a brand new baby girl. And obviously for a lot of people, it'd be the exact reason why they would go to insert large tech name here.
Yeah.
But I know I can always have that. I could pick up a phone now and be able to get, a couple of interviews with no sweat whatsoever. But how often am I going to be able to go help build something from the ground up and hopefully one day look back and show, hey, look, this is what we accomplished together. That doesn't come across too many people's plates in the SaaS world. So for me, it was a no-brainer to give this a go again. So.
Okay. So being a dad, I mean, you have 8-month-old. Is that how old she is now?
10 months now.
10 months now. Jeez. So when you joined Abstract, that's a fairly big risk. Did you have second guess that at all? Or was it because of that impact and what you had the ability to do, you're confident in yourself to be able to make that risk?
When I was younger, I had somebody who was teaching me just kind of about complacency and how complacency evolves. And I think that that's something that's always stuck with me, and how, one day you're doing X and then you're making X amount of dollars and you've got the house and you've got the kids and all of a sudden you're doing X and, you kind of get to a place where you're really comfortable. So I've always tried to avoid getting myself into a position where I'm extremely comfortable. But at the same time, insert a child, as someone who just had their first child, and as many can attest, your outlook and the way that you look at those things that you grew up with and those ideals like, hey, never be complacent. You kind of just sit there for a moment and second guess yourself every now and then, right? So I definitely had reservations about it and I definitely thought it through and things of that nature. But hey, I still got energy in me. I'm still relatively young. And it was one of those situations, like I said, I know that I can go get a job elsewhere. So why not, go do something fun, do something that's going to throw things, curveballs at you, something new and different every day. Not many people get that. And a lot of people, not the, proverbial cubicle anymore, with, remote work and whatnot, but just wasn't for me. And I don't think it will be for me. So.
Yeah. As Bruce Arians would say, no risk it, no biscuit, right?
That's my boy right there. I love BA. BA is my guy. He's the best. He brought us I'm a big Bucks fan. And for anybody who's a Buccaneers fan, I know they're finite, probably not watching this. We went through 18 years of not making the playoffs and we won a Super Bowl. So yes, BA is good in my book.
Loved him here in Arizona. It was a hard goodbye, but you know what? It happens. So let's get back. Let's talk a little bit about, joining a startup, especially employee number 3 here at Abstract. So it was Greg and I, and there was just, so much that could be on your plate. What hit you right in the face that maybe you weren't expecting when you first started?
I think it's a good thing. It was just how much autonomy to problem solve I had. With a lot of people, and I'm sure we'll touch on this a little bit too, especially when you're working with a founder, it's difficult for them to be able to let go and let their baby kind of be tinkered in a way with that they may not have thought of or not comfortable with, and may have not been their first decision. So, just the amount of autonomy to be able to problem solve was something that was, whoa. Part one, because then all of a sudden I'm making decisions that are, product and customer facing and things of that nature. And then 2, it's not a level that most people are accustomed to, especially even if you are employee number 3, so that was definitely kind of an aha moment for me when I first started here.
Did that, I know from when I started it was very similar, but it was a bigger weight than I expected to take. Cause you think you have what it takes, you have the confidence, but you second guess yourself, because it's a lot of weight on your shoulders to be able to say, all right, Spencer, here you go. Here's the customer success side. I need to get up our daily active users. I need you to do this and this. Good luck, figure it out. Like, did you feel that as well?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's anytime you need to move a needle, whether you're carrying a bag as an AE or you are trying to get adoption up or you're trying to change processes that just are inefficient, there's definitely a weight to it. And when you're dealing with the most valuable people that a startup have, in a sense, our customers, that is definitely a big weight and a big burden. And it's what keeps you pushing to be able to make sure you get things done the right way. So
so let's talk about this a little bit more. Employee number 3, you have equity, right? But you don't have this, you're not a founder. How does that make you feel? Or did you ever second guess it in the sense of the work you had to put in to be able to realize, like, maybe you don't have that same level, but you have to take that same responsibility?
Well, I think this has a lot to do why I decided to align with Greg, and the fact that we are people who, and as you know, and you are one of them, and we've hired on 3 more who hopefully will show they're the same exact way, but people who care about their personal brand as much as what they're doing from a, building a company standpoint, right? And what I mean by that is that being able to look back and say that you have integrity and that you put hard work into something is of extreme and of the most highest importance to you, which is, I think, a similarity that Greg and I share, you and I share, and then the people we've hired. That's something we definitely looked for when interviewing was, okay, does this person want to just collect a paycheck? Are they trying to let me see if I can test the water for sales? Like, we'll kind of go that route. Or is this somebody who has a track record of a high level of achievement, or even of a high level of failing, where they've really understood what they've tried to attempt and how they got to the point where things didn't quite work out? I love those scenarios just as much as I love victories, because it shows that somebody put in the time and the effort to understand what they were trying to do. And that's what we all share here. And that's what keeps me going from a personal standpoint, is that I don't want to be the person who's the laggard. And I don't ever want to have somebody say, okay, Spencer's work was the reason why we decided to not continue to work with Abstract, or we didn't have a good experience with Abstract still.
Okay, so you have that competitive side kind of popped up a little bit. You don't want to be last. Do you think that's a quality that everybody, if you're looking to join a startup or you have that opportunity, is that a quality that's needed?
It's interesting. I've seen people who would not come off as the most type A competitive person be wildly successful in roles that traditionally require a type A competitive individual to fill it. I think it really comes down to the individual. It comes down to kind of their background and their ethos, if you will, their more, where they stand and how they're principled in their life. That dictates that type of thing. So.
Okay. Just depends. So in that sense, when you're talking about being able to put in that hard work, being able to have that same ownership mentality, is that something you grew up with? Is that going back to your childhood? Is that what you were taught, or where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, my family, as many families are that are down in Arizona, got roots in the Midwest, and that I attribute a lot of the hardworking grit that I get from having examples of individuals who needed to fix things and, tackle problems and did what it took in order to be able to do that. So that was definitely instilled at me at a young age that, you got to work for what you have and things of that nature. So yeah, I would say my childhood definitely played a huge role in it. And, but at a certain point you need to start taking onus on yourself. Cause like I said, that complacency beast comes in and says, hey, you're doing pretty well. Why don't you just hang here for a bit? And you got to find something that can kind of kick you back into gear and move you to the next spot. So that's a whole nother beast in and of itself, but for sure.
It's interesting thinking about that, because there's probably a lot of people who grew up differently, right? Had maybe didn't have to do chores, or they had different backgrounds, or maybe only a single parent. So there's so many different backgrounds that people can have, but so many also different ways people can be successful. But I think ultimately that's like such a common theme that I've seen, is the ability to put in the work, knowing that you might not get rewarded right at this time, but you will get rewarded later in life, or either with the company, with another company. So it's an interesting to hear that perspective on it, because it's something that I think is super important, but it's like, how do you teach that? How do you help people who maybe don't have that, who want to have it? So there's two sides of that.
Yeah. Well, and I also think too, it's not a game that startups can really play. And I think that those types of games are meant for folks who are looking to go to the big corporate, and they may be able to find it and then find themselves the ability to be able to be interested and kind of inquisitive about what a startup looks like, and the kind of effort and work that takes, place at a place like Abstract, just because of the fact that, we don't have the luxury to be able to instill those efforts in those folks. Trust me, I would love to have the ability to instill that in those types of folks, because that means we're doing some seriously good things. And I probably have 100 other people doing it for me. I wouldn't have to do it. So, I think it's interesting to see how people come from different backgrounds, but I also think it's extremely important to keep that in mind if you're in a startup and you're looking to add people, that you just don't have the luxury for it. So don't waste your time on it. And unfortunately, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it's just the reality of it. So
it's true. So diving into that just a little bit more, because I just want to pick your brain on it, especially as we've gone through a lot of hiring, what are some of the qualities, if you can name 2 or 3 qualities, that we've talked about one, but is there anything else that, you would say, you're the perfect kind of fit, or you have the right mentality to be at a startup, or what do you see in that sense when you've been interviewing?
Yeah. So I think that what I really look for is foundational pieces. I think that you can, like we just talked about, there's certain things that we don't have the luxury to teach. The things that I look for are things that are not something that we have the luxury to teach. So if we were to take a look at that, it would be somebody who's got humility. Somebody who has the ability to say I am wrong, or if I oftentimes in my interviews will correct people and offer up other ways of maybe thinking of things to just see how they might react to it. Because not so much that I'm interested in their answer, I'm interested in their reaction, right? I don't care what the answer is, but if they're willing to sit there and listen and actually show that they're listening to what you're trying to say, that to me shows somebody who is, 1, ready to learn, 2, has humility, and 3, hopefully can apply it. Now that's where the next of the questions comes, is kind of, you want to say everyone says they're hardworking and everyone says that they have all these skills, but I especially love the question that I love to ask is, I tell them I do not want to talk about their business skills whatsoever. And I'll lay it out like black and white. Like, I don't want to talk about your business skills whatsoever. I don't want to talk about where you've worked, what you've done. What I want you to do is just tell me something about you that I don't know, and let's just talk about who you are. And it's amazing. You'll see just how fast people will kind of come right back towards their business skills. Like they'll say like, well, I've got a dog, and then we're going to go back to, I made quota 3 months in a row, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that's not, I don't know. Am I not asking this question correctly? But you get to see like, hey, is this person willing to kind of be a little bit more vulnerable, right? Like show that they're a little bit like, hey, this is a little bit about me. I just met you, because that really goes a long way. When not only working with a team, but also, when you're trying to execute on a daily basis in pretty much every role. I think it's universal. It's not necessarily just a sales related piece. So
that's true. That's good. So I listened to the Ed Milet podcast, and he always talks about humility and confidence, right? And they're two things that people need. You don't want someone who only has humility and no confidence, because they're not very fun to be around. But you don't want someone who has all confidence and no humility, because they're just cocky and annoying. So you need to have this combo of both. So it's just interesting that you said that, because I was like, oh, it applies directly to that.
That's
so.
a much more succinct route. I need to check out this guy's podcast, because I'd say I'm chronic of the roundabout answer. I probably get there a little bit longer than some people, and then things get a little lengthy, but we get there. We get there.
Yeah, we get there. It's all good. Okay, let's go back out of this hole that I dove into. Okay,
yeah, sure.
So let's talk about working with founders, and let's kind of transition to that. Greg hopefully is listening, but I don't know. We'll see. We're 19 minutes in, so we'll see if he hears this. But from your standpoint, like coming in, you knew Greg's, right? So you kind of had that advantage there. I mean, do you think that's a requirement, knowing that person you're going to go work for, or how do you have that trust that you're like, this is the right decision, I'm going to go make this choice, I'm going to take this risk?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's say there's a difference in knowing someone and knowing someone. And what I mean by that is that I knew Greg, sure, but would I say that I knew him very well? No. So we'd been talking for many, many years for me to try and work at a number of different places that never just quite panned out. Right. So when we go to, our paths started crossing again, we started to have a couple of conversations. We had multiple conversations, and then I asked them, let's go to lunch. And then we went to lunch together, and just, to be able to sit there across from him and be able to get to know him, and for him also to get to know me, because, a lot of founders, you can read about it. And in the past, they want yes people, they want people who are going to just nod their head and do exactly what they want them to do, because founders created this. Therefore, they know what's best for their baby. But you could tell by the humility that Greg had, and the amount of drive that he had, and the conviction that he had, that I was going to be able to be myself, go ahead, tell him that, hey, you know what? I think this idea is shit, and he's not going to be offended. And as long as I have a logical answer, I would say Greg, for the most part, him and I, we disagree on a lot of things. We agree on a lot of things. But the one thing we always walk away from is, by the end of the call, we're laughing and having a good time, because we know we're just trying to push each other. And that I could see at an early spot when I sat down with him. I said, okay, this is a founder that I could work for, because of the fact that, hey, his mantra is hire good people, get out of the way. People love to say that, but you don't really have people who live that all that often. And that's what you get in Greg. So that's why I decided to come on board too. Big reason why I decided to come on board.
Yeah, interesting. So then,
not that I need to say anything more glowing about Greg. That's about the end of that. But
all right, okay, let's get into the good stuff. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But talking about that, you do butt heads. I mean, it's life, right? Anybody, and if you're married, if you boyfriend, girlfriend, like whatever, you're gonna butt heads with someone that you're always around. And even though we work remotely, I think we still talk all the time, every day, and we're in and out of this, right? So when you butt heads, like when you're having that struggle and it's just a tough time, like how do you get through that? Like what do you suggest for someone who might be going through that right now? Like how do they get past that step and continue to build that relationship that they have with their founder?
Yeah, I think it's something you need to really establish early on, right? I think you need to establish early on that, look, I'm going to be, at the very least, I'm going to play devil's advocate on everything. I will play devil's advocate on everything. And that's just kind of a theme of what I do. It's like, oh, great, Spencer's going to start talking. Here we go, right? So, but that's a good thing, because what I'm trying to do, and what Greg does for me, is also try and poke holes everywhere. It's like, how do we get this the most logically sound option and the best option out of it? Because really, I don't fully believe that when you're in a startup that every decision you make is the best decision that you've ever made, no matter how much time you spend scrutinizing it. So it's like, and if you try and do that, you'll be stuck doing nothing. So what we have an understanding early on, that if you are respectful and you've got logic behind what you're going to disagree with and butt heads with, then we're allowed to butt heads. But the minute you start butting heads with someone and you are not providing those things, you could lose the ability to do that very quickly, and the patience for you to be able to do that very quickly. So if I were to say, for someone who is either trying to repair a relationship, you're going to want to really have a sit down and a heart to heart and try and be vulnerable in front of each other, because that's the only way. That means there's a lot of surface level stuff going on between the two of you. I can almost guarantee it. So what you need to do is you need to go back, have a deeper conversation, be real about it. It's going to be uncomfortable as all hell. It's going to feel like you're rubbing sandpaper against your bare skin, but you need to do it. For someone who's early in a startup or thinking about joining a startup, your interview process is the time for you to be as candid as you want, because as much as it's weird, we live in a country where like we are as valuable to the employer as the employer is valuable to us most of the time. Yeah. Obviously, there's sometimes existential circumstances that are at play, and you may need a job for some X, Y, and Z reason. But most of the time, if you're taking a job just because you need it, it's not going to work out. So your interview process is the time to be able to put that line in the sand. I'm going to disagree with you. It's going to be uncomfortable. How are we going to work together through that? What does that look like in your world? So
that's true.
And the answers you'll get are either really deep answers, like, with the situation with me and Greg, or you'll get surface level answers and you'll know that somebody's bullshitting. Oh yeah. We disagree with each other all the time. Oh yeah. No, like literally this is yours. We're a startup, build it, like do what you want. And then all of a sudden you get into the situation and they're trying to micromanage and tell you every single thing to do. You know. So it's important to get that out of the way early.
Yeah, well, and it helps you find if that's a fit or not for you, if that's where you want to be, or maybe if you're ready to take on that responsibility even too, because I think it goes both sides. It's not always the employer's fault. Is you have to look at yourself and say, am I ready to be in this spot? Am I ready to take on this responsibility? And I think it goes both ways off of that.
For sure.
Okay.
Couldn't agree more.
What has made you successful? You think so far at Abstract, you've been killing it, and I know you hate to gloat and all that stuff, but what are some of the things that you believe that made you successful that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I think a lot of the things that have helped me with achieving things and being, relatively good at what I do is the ability to understand when I'm just a dumbass. And I say that because I'm very, you get to know me, I'm not very rigid, but just know when I was being dumb, it'd just be like, that was a bad decision. Like, what were you thinking there? And being able to understand and I crave feedback, right? So, anytime you say something to me and I'm like, gosh, what was I even thinking about? Like, why was I even going down that tangent? Right. But those things are learning opportunities. If you look at those as learning opportunities and not ego hits, then all of a sudden doors can open for you very quickly. And they have in my life is the ability to be able to course correct, say once. I'm one of those guys you really only have to say it once to, and then I learn and I go ahead and apply. I look for others to be able to, who are better than what I do, who achieve at a high level, to set examples and then adopt those skills, and be able to apply those to my everyday to be able to find success. I think what's helped me ultimately, I guess, again, here's a circuitous route to a short, circuitous answer to a short.
I love it. Keep going.
But what I think has been best is just building those small building blocks, like the tiniest of things. Yeah. Like I want people to think of the tiniest of things to go through your day. Where you position your pen. If you position your pen every day in the same exact position, guess what? You're never looking for a pen. There's a win. Boom. And if you stack those up over time, small wins, they grow into bigger wins. And then all of a sudden you have some structure around what you're doing. And then when you have structure and you're winning, you feel confident, and then your confidence grows, and then you want to learn more. You want to go do more. You want to bring on more responsibility and things like that. And also the ability in being okay with failure. Like I told you, I love failure stories because I think that tells more about someone than winning will ever do. Yeah. So, I would say that's probably a couple of the attributes that have helped with me.
Yeah, for sure. And you say the failures because it literally brought me back to what Greg says all the time of like, you're going to go weeks, you're going to go months getting kicked in the teeth, right?
Yep.
And how do you keep going? So for you kind of use those little wins to help you every day to keep building on that when maybe you are continuing to get knocked down. Mm-hmm. So
that's why I think everyone should have to go into SDR and like high volume sales if they want to be in the SaaS world first. I think you have to do it because you're going to get kicked in the face 100 times a day. And then when you get that first win, feels pretty good. How do I replicate it? oh wait, I failed 100 times. What did I do wrong? Am I paying attention to what I do wrong? Right. Those are the things that help build success for sure.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat, but on the marketing side, like, I think everybody needs to work at an agency, and not those big agencies where you get like, this is your one responsibility. Like, you go work for a small agency that you're the SEO person, you do website updates, you do the digital ads, like, you get thrown in the fire. Oh, and you have to create this strategy for this multi-million-dollar company. Like, it's the same kind of situation of you get thrown in the fire and you see what you're made of. So, all right. So let's kind of slowly start wrapping this up, but I do want to hit on like misconceptions. So is there something, and you kind of knew the startup world a little bit, but for those looking to join, like, is there any misconceptions or something that you thought might have been this way, but actually wasn't when you started?
I think for a lot of people, they expect things to kind of be prepared for them, like systems and trainings and how we do things and, rules of engagement, like things like that. They expect that at a startup level, and that's just wildly not the case. It is the Wild West in its purest form. I mean, we're just getting over the Rockies type of situation. Like, it's, anything and everything can happen at any moment, and you need to be able to react. But the only way you'll be able to react is if you actually do a lot of self-education. And if you don't see those processes where they need to be, then you need to build them. So if you want to drive value, like, you need to build those. Yeah. And like, that's kind of where I think a lot of people, especially when they're just thinking, oh, I want to try out startups, I've seen a lot of people who come from large, companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange, blah, blah, blah. And they come in and they've got a 30-day schedule with every hour regimented, and you're going to go to this class and you're going to read this PDF document. You're going to watch these videos, and then we're going to do a group exercise, and then this, and then we're going to go do this, and then we're going to have a sandwich break. And then we're going to go, you get where I'm going with this. My point is the fact that you're going to come into something that largely you're going to need to build. And I challenge people that when I'm interviewing them, and I was like, hey, when you're thinking of this role, don't just think of this as a role for X position. Think of this as, how would I build? What will I build while I'm here, while I'm executing at a high level at what I've been hired to do? So
that is deep. That is the most spot on, I think. Perfect. That was perfect. I don't even have words. I'm speechless. So what advice, like, we've talked about so much from, being able to work hard, being able to take ownership, right? All of these things. Is there any other advice that you would give either maybe a founder listening, because we don't really touch on that side, or someone joining that you think we haven't touched on?
Just have fun. God. Have fun. Just try and have some fun. It's not that serious. It is not that serious. I know it feels like it is, but gosh, if I were to, it's like, I talk to some people who are at startups, and I mean, it's like they've seen a ghost 24/7. They're on their 9th Red Bull of the day. They can't keep their eyes off of an LCD screen. It's absurd. I mean, it's going to age you. You're going to start looking like hell, and you're not going to get any sleep. And trust me, because I've lived it. And it's like, the minute you decide, okay, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the mindset of like, hey, I'm having fun doing this, right? And you may not be having fun, but if you can try and remind yourself, at one point you were having fun. There was definitely at one point where you were having fun. That's why you're here, right? Try and get back to that. Loosen up. Loosen the fuck up, if you can beep that out. But yeah, just chill out. Just have some fun.
No beeping, no beeping. We just roll with it, Spencer.
Yeah, just have some fun.
I love that. Sometimes I need to tell myself that. I think you get too serious, too bogged down in it, because you want to be perfect, right? But you obviously no one can be perfect, but you try to achieve that, and so I think sometimes the fun gets left out of it.
Yeah, so. And two is like, and then it's like, God, you just kind of get exhausted with yourself. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you need to go back to like doing what got you here. Like, what's going on? So if you're in a startup, the whole thing is it's the wild, wild west. You're going to have to work hard as hell, but you can sure as shit have fun doing it. So.
Yeah. All right, Spencer, what's next for you? What's either at Abstract, the future, just what's next on the journey of Spencer Fossen?
We got 2 partnership calls after that. No, I'm kidding. I am going to, I'm just looking forward. Like, honestly, right now, I love raising my family. I love watching my daughter, just grow into this unreal personality that's just like, holy moly. I think that's part of the reason why that have fun piece. Like, gosh, I mean, if you ever want to see that, look at a 10-month-old and just everything is awesome. I have a golden retriever named Flag. Everything is just awesome to him. Everything is cool. His treats are literally ice cubes and he thinks they're like liquid gold. It's the coolest thing. But it's just one of those things for me is just, what's next for me is living in the moment. I'm going to live in the moment. I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to focus on what's here and now. I'm going to keep kicking ass with you and Greg and the people we brought on here at Abstract. And I'm just going to focus on that for a while. And then when the ADHD takes over, we'll see what happens. So.
Love it. Powerful, powerful, Spencer. Well, if anyone wants to connect with you or ask you more questions, what's the best way to reach you?
I would say you can email me, spencer@abstract.ai. You can send me a LinkedIn message, just Spencer Fossen. That's pretty much it. You can find me on Twitter if you want to see a lot of like Florida State, Tottenham Hotspur, Tampa Bay Buccaneers retweets. I'm a great source for those. Yeah, those would probably be where you can get a hold of me, or you can just you give me a call, 845-542-0352.
You're about to get spammed, Spencer.
Sounds good.
All good. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or visit abstract.ai. abstrakt.ai to learn more. Keep kicking ass. Peace out.